Hello, Theresa Baker here, and we're going to talk about the REDCap data dictionary file. This file is formatted as a CSV file, and this feature is an advanced skill. The first row is your header row. In it, you will be able to see each of the columns. Your first column is your variable column. Your second column is the form name that variable lives in. Your third column is a section header that would distinguish between the two variables. Your fourth column is your field type, and your fifth column, E, is your field label. This is the question that you would be presenting, or what you would be calling the artifact. Column F is the choices that you might have for a radio or a drop-down or a checkbox field type. It also is where you would put your calculations for a calculated field. Column G is your field note. This is where you might put reminders or little notes for the person that's entering the data. Column H is where you have text validation. For a text field, you could call it a date, you could have a phone or an email, a number, an integer. There's all kinds of different text validation options. In the event that you do a number or an integer, you can use column I to indicate the minimum value, and you can use column J to indicate the maximum value. Column K is for your identifiers. In the event you have a variable that it's PHI, this is where you can indicate that variable is an identifier. Column L is your branching logic. For any variable that you may want to show up or not show up at any given moment sequence. Column M is your required field. If you want something to be completed or for there to be a message to indicate that something has not been completed, this is where you would indicate that. Column N is for custom alignment. Your choices are right, horizontal, right, vertical, left, horizontal, left, vertical. Column O is for customized question numbers in your surveys. It defaults to 1, 2, 3, 4. However, you could choose to do a custom one such as A, B, C, D. Column P is for your grouping of your matrix. When you do a matrix, the set of variables have to be grouped together, and that matrix group name must be distinct and unique. It cannot be repeated. Same goes for variables. Your variable cannot be repeated, and it cannot have a numeric on the front end. It has to start with an alpha or an underscore. You cannot use any capitalized letters in your variable name. If you take a look, you'll see that there are certain special features to pay attention to. One example of a feature to pay attention to is how REDCap distinguishes the coded values in a drop-down, a radio, or a checkbox. First of all, the format is the code followed by a comma and the value that code represents, separated by the next code with a comma and that value that represents. So this here says that for gender, 0 equals female and 1 equals male. You will also see in this particular field special items such as calculations. In this particular case, we are taking the difference between the date of birth and today's date in years and we're rounding it to the nearest whole number. Down here, we are calculating BMI by taking the weight in kilograms times 10,000, and we're dividing it by the height in centimeters squared, and we're rounding it to the first decimal point. These are just a few things that you might want to have pointed out when you're playing in the data dictionary file. It's easiest to start by building in the online designer and pulling over to the data dictionary file to see what your setup is and to start identifying how to build in this particular file scheme. And that is the data dictionary file.